This is video 10 of 101. This video is about chopping tools. I know there's this stigma around cutting vegetables that makes it seem like it's such a laborious process, but really when you get good at it, it actually can be kind of fun, and it can actually be kind of a really great stress reliever, because if you think about it, you're just chopping into this really nice texture. If your knives are sharp, it's a very smooth, fluid cut and nice resistance against the chop there. I know onions can be kind of a little annoying because sometimes they can make your eyes water, but I really think someone should invent like onion goggles, or even just like wearing goggles when you're chopping onions. I have done that a couple times when I'm chopping a lot of onions for like a curry or something. So in the previous video we learned that having your knife sharp is very critical. In this video I'm going to talk about the different kinds of cutting boards and the different kinds of knives that are available, and a couple chopping techniques for certain fruits and vegetables as well. There are many different types of cutting boards that are available. There are ceramic and glass and plastic, and most commonly wooden. Glass and ceramic can dull your knives very easily, and I personally don't recommend them. Wooden boards have been around the longest. The wood is very forgiving for the knife cuts, so it's soft on the blade, but it's also not going to allow the blade to cut into the wood very easily. However, sometimes your boards can scratch and bacteria can harbor in them. And also in the 80s they did these studies where they found a lot of bacteria harboring in wooden boards, so they started to come out with plastic boards. But are these any safer? Not really. Plastic boards are much easier to scratch and cut up than wooden boards are. So the bacteria can just harbor in those grooves there, and you're kind of right back at the same thing. The key is keeping your boards clean and after every single use, no matter what you're using. I personally like wooden boards, and that is what I use. I think they are the most natural and they are the best on your blade. And if you're cleaning them after every use, harboring bacteria is not as big of a concern. There are many different types of knives. This is kind of like a basic knife set here. But the main three that you're going to be using is a butcher's knife, a small paring knife, and a serrated blade. A serrated blade is obviously the ones with the kind of grooves in the blade there. Most commonly called like a bread knife. They are good for chopping bread, but also for the vegetables, tomatoes, and bell peppers. They're really great for having more control over each chop. The butcher's knife, the bigger one, is probably what you're going to be using most often, and that's for just chopping basically anything. One note I will make is that I am just going to be talking about plant-based chopping. If you are chopping any kind of responsibly sourced animal products, I recommend having a separate board so you're not going to cross-contaminate anything like that. And if you're switching your knife back and forth, you're always washing and sanitizing during that switch. The smaller paring knife is good for smaller cuts and like lemons and limes, and more precise smaller cuts. And then you've got ones for eating as well, and then there are various ones for more specialized cooking techniques. I recommend with cutting is that you're pushing forward and then pulling back instead of pushing straight down. Forward diagonal motion and then pulling back. When I'm chopping vegetables into small pieces, I like to chop them in a grid-like fashion. You can see here with this onion, I am chopping from left to right. I'm turning the onion once all those chops have been made, and then I'm chopping from left to right again, creating somewhat of a grid. It's going to get a little messy, it's not going to be perfect. Dicing things is actually a lot more fun than it sounds. Chopping things in a grid, so just trying to find the best grid that you can for your item. I recommend when you chop something, putting that flat edge onto the chopping board, so then it kind of gives you some stability when you're chopping that piece there. So once you've chopped everything up into that grid and you have those bigger pieces, holding the knife on the tip end with your hand on the top and then using your other hand to chop is a really great easy way to dice produce very quickly. And if you just give this a good minute or so, combining your piles as they start to spread out. And then with smaller things, if you just slide the knife underneath, using it as a pickup tool there, and then you can just scrape it off into your bowl. It makes picking up small pieces a lot easier than having to do them by hand. And then just eyeing out big pieces and giving them a nice good chops there, and then you've got a great diced jalapeno. A really great way for opening up and chopping avocados is to just cut into them until you feel the pit, then turning them to cut all the way around, twisting the avocado to open it, and then smacking the knife in that pit there and doing a little twist to pop it out. I recommend holding your hand over the food as you're chopping it. It's going to help with stability and preciseness of each cut. For me personally, I love to have my cutting boards out and ready to go on a moment's notice. If I just want to chop a couple things really quickly, I'm good to go. I just do some chops, wash off the board really quickly, and keep going from there. Having the cutting board out really helps my kitchen flow because I'm chopping produce all the time. Having the cutting board out, if you have the space, is a really beneficial tip to help your kitchen flow.